or you the one who is looking into getting into a banking sector or some sort of services in the banking side. So if you are interested in banking sector and if you want to know whether your horoscope matches and if you are destined to get into a banking sector, then this video is for you. So last video, we have already seen the combinations for getting into a teaching field. So when it comes to teaching, planet Jupiter plays a very important role. Similarly, in banking, Jupiter plays the main role. However, the another planet which gives that extra bit of fuel or extra bit of energy to Jupiter is Mercury or Buddha. So when Jupiter and Mercury, somewhat, if they are connected to second or 10th house, then the person might get into a banking field. However, there is a subtle difference between a person who's doing a teaching job and a banking job. For a teaching job, the person has to talk, he has to interact with the students. So the teaching profession becomes very important because second house need to be more significant for a teaching person. However, for a banking personality, the communication is only a certain aspect of the banking profession because he is going to deal with money, which is again the second house. So more than the second house, it is the 10th house that matters more for a banking personality. So let's get into the sample horoscopes of people who get into banking professions. So let me share my screen right now. So this is one example of a person who is in the banking field. So this is an example of a Scorpio ascendant. So Scorpio ascendant with its Mars, Mars being the ruler of Scorpio, is posited in the ascendant itself, which means it's a very strong horoscope. So if you directly look at the Jupiter is placed in the 6th house. Jupiter placed in the 6th house aspects the second house. Okay. And then the 10th house. So Jupiter also aspects Mercury. So the Mercury is related to writing. It's like dealing with writing, slips and all that, papers and all that. So Mercury is also more prominent when it comes to banking sector. In teaching, Jupiter is most predominant planet that needs to be connected to second and 10th house. Whereas here, you can see that Mercury, though placed in the 12th house, it gets the aspect of Jupiter. Jupiter gets the second house aspect and 10th house is aspected by Jupiter. So 2 and second and 10th house are from the ascendant or connected to Jupiter. Also, you need to look from moon. So now we have seen from ascendant. If you see from moon, the next house, second house is Mercury. So second house you have Mercury and Jupiter is directly linked to the second house from moon. So this is how you can see a person who is in a banking job. This is example 1. Let's get into another example. Okay. So in my previously when I mentioned about Jupiter's role in banking profession, the second house somehow can be have malefic effects because the person is not going to speak much in the banking sector. Okay, he is going to sit at one place, people are going to come, he is going to write the challan or whatever. So he's going to help the people getting the money out from the bank or take the money back into the bank. So that's how it's more of financial transaction rather than a communication. So if you see, this is an example of a Pisces ascendant, the Pisces sign, and we have Ketu in the second house and Mars Rahu in the 8th house. So the Mars Rahu Ketu. So when you have second house in the 8th house with Rahu Ketus, basically second house is damaged. 8th house is banned. So second house has malefic influence. However, if you see, Jupiter is in the 6th house again. In the previous chart, we saw Jupiter was in the 6th house. Again, Jupiter in the 6th house aspects the second house. And Jupiter in the 6th house also aspects the 10th house. The 10th house again has Mercury and Sun. So the Mercury gets the benefic aspect out of Jupiter. So the Jupiter is connected to second and 10th house here. Whereas the second house, though has malefic influence, it receives the aspect of Jupiter. So this person doesn't have to communicate again. So this is another example of a person who will or who can get into banking sector. Let's go to example number 3. Okay. So again, this is example of a Scorpio ascendant. Again, the second house from the ascendant, right? The ascendant second house is has Rahu and Ketu. The second house is already damaged. This person doesn't want to talk. So his profession doesn't deal with marketing, teaching, and all that. So he doesn't want to talk. So what happens is Jupiter in the 6th house aspects the second house, which is already damaged. However, the aspect of Jupiter is not going to solve the problems of second house. So this person would still doesn't want to talk. He just wants to do his job and leave. So Jupiter again connected to the second house, and Jupiter again connected to the 10th house. The 10th house again has Mercury and Sun. So 10th house is power and position. So if you look at horoscopes which has 10th house Sun, 10th house Mercury, 10th house aspected by Jupiter, this person will get into a higher grade in the banking sector. He could become a manager. He could become a head of, so he could work in a reserve bank at a higher grade and all that. So this is how we judge the strength of an horoscope. Let's go to the final example of people working in the banking sector. So this is an example of a Libra ascendant person. Libra ascendant, this person has Jupiter itself placed in the 10th house. So Jupiter is exalted here, right? Jupiter is exalted here. And Jupiter aspects the second house. So if you see again, the second house is damaged. You have Mars, Ketu here. And you can have Rahu also, any planet, any Mars, Rahu, Ketu, Saturn. This indicates the second house is afflicted. This person is not going to talk. At least for in this profession, because second house is damaged, second house is speech. So Jupiter aspecting the second house and Jupiter aspecting the 10th house. If you see, Jupiter also aspects the Mercury and the Sun. So you can see that Jupiter is connected to the second house and Jupiter again placed in the 10th house, right? 2, 6, 10. If you see 2, 10, 6 connected with Jupiter, Jupiter alone. And if you see Mercury also receives good aspect of Jupiter, which means writing. Mercury is again writing, communication. And Jupiter connected to 2nd and 10th house indicates professions of Jupiter, especially in the banking sector and not in the teaching. So these are the few example horoscopes that are there. So that's it. So this is the main difference between a person in the teaching sector and the banking sector. So sometimes it is very difficult. Most of the time it is very difficult for beginners who are learning astrology to know these subtle differences between people working in this different sector and all that. So you have to go slowly and see, like, is it only Jupiter who is connected to 2nd and 10th house, or is there any other planet that is connected to the 2nd and 10th house? How 2nd and 10th house are already there? Because 2nd house is very important. As I say, 2nd house is the house of speech. If 2nd house is really good, and if it doesn't have many malefic influence at all, and if Jupiter is directly connected to the 2nd house, 10th house and all that, then there are chances that a person could be in a profession where he talks and makes money. So which is basically a teaching sector or marketing if Mercury is connected there. So this is the example of a person, the people who are working in the banking sector. So if you want to know more, and if you, there are a lot more useful information that I'm going to share in this channel. If you're interested, kindly please do post your queries in the comment section, and also don't forget to subscribe. See you. Bye.